This week on Bravo Outsider.
Because you know what? I agree with what Brittany said in the previous episode. Like, this show is full of people going through hell.
It's the nastiest of nasty strip clubs. Like, why would you ever go with your mom?
Janet is a pure angel that can do no wrong. Hello and welcome to the Bravo Outsider Podcast. I'm your host, Craig Midwinter, joined as always by Dylan Ferguson. And we are very happy to have guests back in our studio, for lack of a better word. We are joined by the producer and host of the Real Housewives of North Hollywood, Carson Frae and Ezra Balcha.
I may be from Ethiopia and love South Park, but don't call me Starvin' Marvin. Not because it's offensive, but because I'm fat.
I'm not just the guest. I'm a main event with a spare key.
Nice.
Excellent. Well, I am super excited to be diving into the finale of Summer House, as well as the latest episode of The Valley, which is firing on all cylinders. Let's dive into Summer House. Do you want to give us a little summary of what happened on this episode?
Yeah. We follow the emotional fallout of Lexi and Jesse's breakup as the summer winds down. Each cast member starts to look ahead, questioning who they are and what's next. The once fractured trio of Lindsay, Paige, and Amanda finds an unexpected peace as they step into new chapters.
Awesome. Yeah, this was a pretty satisfying finale. Obviously, the storyline that has dominated this season has been Lexi and Jesse, and I thought it tied itself up pretty nicely, but I'm curious what you guys thought. Were you satisfied with the finale of Summer House?
I thought it was the best episode all season, to be honest.
Oh, yeah? Oh, wow.
I've been a little bored with this season of Summer House. It's not, I don't think it's their worst season, but I don't think it's their best either. But I did have some satisfaction in the end. The Jesse and Lexi storyline to me was way too long. It was so drawn out. So at least we got a final on that thing. And I loved how they kind of brought it back to what the core of Summer House is about, which is really the friendships among these people. And we ended there.
Yeah. Do you think that like major changes need to be made to Summer House, or do you think that it's just like subtle tweaks? How would you fix Summer House?
I think I kind of agree with the audience in a lot of ways. Like, we need a spin-off, kind of like The Valley. And I think this episode, a lot of it was kind of prepping for some type of spin-off. Will it be the girls in the city? Will it be some of them on Roni? I'm not sure. I think Lindsay fits on Roni, but I don't think the other girls quite do yet. And I think Summer House will maybe be leaning more into Wes and Jesse and those characters and kind of adding on. But I do feel like the show's kind of at a standpoint where, and there's so much, I talked about this so much, but the acknowledgement of the fourth wall is insane.
Yeah.
Like in this episode of the show within a show, and me and Ez were kind of talking about it. Like, it's almost like on the Truman Show when they realize like, oh, I'm being filmed. And it's like, these characters are aware of it and production's acknowledging how aware they are. But yeah, I think we're gearing up for some type of spinoff.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that, because we also had a comment on our last episode where the commenter thought that Bravo is concerned about the age of the people within the Summer House and how that impacts the vibe. And I think that's definitely something that they are concerned about, but it feels like Bravo's kind of in this weird spot because they are like two of their kind of staple franchises, Roni and Real Housewives of New Jersey, are, up in the air, and also Vanderpump Rules. Like, they really need stability right now. And Summer House has like one of arguably their biggest active stars right now in like Paige, because, with Roni being rebooted and question marks there, and with New Jersey being up in the air, you don't have like Teresa and Melissa, and Vanderpump is like being rebooted. So I feel like Paige is one of the biggest stars, and to spin her off, on one hand, that could be really good for energizing a new series out of the gate, but that is a major risk to what is otherwise a pretty stable franchise. So I'm curious, because I also got a very like spin-off-y vibe, especially from the coda that we get at the end of the episode where we're diving into Lindsay's adjustment into parenthood and Paige post breakup with Craig. So I'm really curious what happens there. Dylan, what did you think about the season of Summer House in general?
I'm lukewarm on it, and I'm lukewarm on the finale for the same reason. I thought Lexi and Jesse was a pretty interesting storyline. It certainly gave us a lot to talk about over the past few months. But the fact that it dominated the entire season was a little disappointing for me. I would have liked to see a little more variety of storylines. And so the fact that the finale was pretty much all based on that, aside from the coda at the end, which kind of tried to tie up a few loose ends, it wasn't the most satisfying thing for me. I did think it was like a really interesting relationship, but it kind of left everything else to the leeway, and we didn't really get to explore much more beyond that. And that's the thing that was most disappointing for me about this season.
Okay, so let's talk about how this was presented here. Ezra, did anything stand out to you in terms of the presentation of this episode?
Yeah, I was getting really amused by their choice in using split screens and different aspect ratios, like going back and forth between them, and kind of like having one piece of information kind of bleed into a different screen. It kind of reminded me of Ang Lee's Hulk a little bit, and like their like comic book panel, like like extreme use of like comic book panel kind of storytelling in a way.
Only good Marvel movie.
Right, the only one, the only one. So that was really amusing. And I feel like that kind of played into a little bit of the themes too, just life and death and, going from light to dark. Yeah, it was surprising to see them lean into that so much.
I think you really hit on it there when you said the theme of life and death was like really present in this. That seemed to be really the vibe that they were going for, was that this is the episode about life and death as a metaphor, but also like literally in the sense of like a new baby is born at the end. But and then of course they have a whole party that's a Halloween party, so everybody's doing kind of death themed stuff. The coffin is just going on throughout it. In the aftermath of Jesse and Lexi's breakup, when they start making jokes about it, Amanda has one of her great one-liners where she's like, "Guys, the body's not even cold yet." And
yeah, true. Yeah,
and I love that line.
It was great. It was great. Yeah, and then we switched from that like right into a whole bunch of death imagery, just like a whole bunch of coffins and zombies and stuff. I thought that was pretty fun, pretty satisfying. It works well as a finale for that way too, because it really does kind of have that. You mentioned, Carson, that one of the things that was satisfying about this episode was that it feels like they bring it back to what people love about the show, which is that it's just about some friends hanging it out, and it's about the friendships more than it is maybe about the dramas and the romances. That at the end of the day, it's just about buds being buds. And the fact that they kind of tie off the stuff in the house with being like, the friendships are the stuff that matters, but these are all things that are decaying and dying too, as everything does. And then we get a very stark transition into, the city. We're back in New York, and as they always do. And I often feel like when they crash back to New York, it feels like the city is like this horror movie villain. Like they got the big towers, it's the shots they use are very, helicopter shots, very impersonal. You're not seeing people, you're just seeing like these big permanent structures. And it really feels to me that it's like, everything that's beautiful about their life at the summer house is the things that are temporary, these moments that are just gonna that are gonna die and fade away. And then it's like the city is like, boom, this like temple of like permanent huge steel structures. Just the clash between those two things is something that makes it like really cinematic for me. And then and then it makes it even more satisfying when we tie it off with new life. There's a little baby here, and they're in the middle of the city. But in the middle of the city, there's a new little baby being born. So it has that almost like fable quality to it,
Yeah, and with what you said, it just made me think about how the baby represents life. Paige literally says, "Craig is dead to me."
Yeah.
And so it's that life and death, and they're celebrating this baby and this breakup together.
Yeah, both celebrations are mixed with each other. Yeah.
Carson, did you have anything in terms of the presentation that we haven't discussed yet that you want to call out?
I mean, the only real thing, because I talked a lot about the show within the show and that kind of being recognized. And but another thing I want to say is that last scene with the girls, it reminded me almost of like the Virgin Suicides or like a Sofia Coppola film where it's about the sliver between girlhood and womanhood and that kind of in-between moment and that celebration. It felt really like feminine, but also like a sadness within it in the happiness. And I think that's why it like spoke to me so hard because I was like, this isn't about being in your early 20s and figuring things out or being in your 40s and already having a family and feeling more established. It's about that in between of I'm not there, but I'm not there yet.
Totally. And Paige really sells that in terms of the like mingling of like adult women with children and like still being kind of and still being themselves children in a way, because Paige is so like childish in the way she's kind of talking to Lindsay and being like, can I watch you pump? When you gave birth, did you poop?
Yeah. There's like that childlike curiosity there.
Exactly.
Yeah. There was this one other moment too, in terms of like the whole aspect ratio thing that I thought was kind of random, but not entirely random. The fact that they had to record the birth on a phone, like forced them to have this like vertical aspect ratio. The only time that they did it, and like this might be a little bit of a stretch, but like to me it was almost kind of like vaginal in a way because everything else is widescreen all the time. But yeah.
I also really like when they use the vertical video because we're so used to seeing that security cam style in Summer House. And then it puts the camera directly into the hands of the players, all the personalities, and they're able to capture things from their perspective. And it just adds another layer that I really love.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk quotes. Did you guys have any quotes that stood out to you?
I was laughing my ass off. Like, it wasn't even that funny, but when Lindsay said, I'm in the process of going through an identity crisis, it reminded me of like, I have concepts of a plan, you know? Just that like that detached, like impersonal kind of, delivery, you know?
Yeah. I'm working towards planning the first steps of an identity crisis.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Carson, how about you?
I wrote that down, and also, guys, the body isn't cold yet, which I know we already brought up, but it was just Amanda's delivery this summer. I do want to shout her out because not my favorite season of Summer House, my favorite season of Amanda, though. Like, we have watched how many seasons of her crashing out and just like struggling with her mental health. And I feel like this is the first season we've kind of seen her personality. And I really like it. And I want more of it. And I like, it's almost like we saw her less dealing with her relationship in a way. I mean, we saw some parts, but not as actively as we have in the past. So it's like, oh, she's funny. Oh, she has like great one-liners and great sideline. It's because we're seeing her kind of being more authentic. And I just loved so much of what she said.
Yeah. That's a great call out about Amanda's season because I think you're right. She really is kind of stepping out into her own. And I wonder how much that has to do with the fact that her and Kyle's relationship didn't have to shoulder the narrative for the bulk of this season. Like we didn't have to dive into questions about like, Kyle's, going out late at night or whatever, because everything was so focused on Jesse and Lexi. It gave characters like Amanda room to like grow and expand. And I also thought this was a really like great season for Ciara to kind of come into her own on the peripheries of all of the drama and conflict. And we learned more about her and like what she's looking for. And I thought we also got to see a bit more of the real Paige shine through here. I think the fact that Jesse and Lexi kind of sucked the air out of this season a little bit. It was a bit of a mixed blessing because I do think that it did give characters room to shine in other ways where we got a little bit more dimension fleshed out in them compared to what we normally see.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Dylan, did you have any quotes that stood out to you?
Beyond what we've already mentioned, I did kind of put a pin in Jesse saying, I would rather not have loved at all, because that just kind of underlines how he was kind of not that serious this whole time, which is one of the weak points, I guess, of the Lexi and Jesse relationship as good TV, is that Lexi, being younger, being less experienced, was a lot more involved, and she was a more compelling character for that reason. And I really enjoyed watching her journey, but Jesse was never taking it that seriously in the first place, I don't think. And the fact that he threw that little quote out there just like that just kind of like sums it up.
Yeah. With a big grin.
Big grin.
The big grin, which never leaves his face. I mean, he does not know how to remove that grin.
No matter what he says, smiling. On Lexi's age, though, because I was like, yeah, she's so young. And I was like, begging people to give her grace. I was like, when I was in my early 20s, I did stupid stuff. She's only a year younger than Ciara and Wes, though, which I found crazy.
Yeah,
she's 27 in the season, there. And then Ciara's 28. But I think it's also her, with Lexi's age, it's not just her actual age, but I don't think she's been around people her own age.
She's also Canadian. A 27-year-old Canadian is like an 18-year-old American. You've got to do the conversion.
It's not straightforward.
No.
But that is interesting because there is definitely like a gulf between where she's at in terms of her maturity and the rest of the cast is. And, we see her relationship with her family, and that's something we've discussed a lot on this podcast. And I'm more than happy to dive into it again. But we talked about the impact that her like almost suffocating presence that her mom and her sister have on her life. And I wonder if her maturity is an artifact of that dynamic that she has.
Yeah, it's hard to let go of those things for anybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and also if you're not around people your own age, I don't think you're seeing how your peers are maturing next to you. You're like, oh, this person acted this way when they were 7 and now we're 10 and they act like this. And I also think her being like a child model, not going to Real High School, has influenced that. And it's like when she said she went to the box and people were like, oh, the box. But I asked a couple of my New Yorker friends, I was like, what do you know about the box? They were like, it's the nastiest of nasty strip clubs. Like, why would you ever go with your mom? And it's not just a strip club. It's like way beyond that. So it's like that gives a lot more context to their like comfortability, but also maybe she doesn't have friends her own age to realistically go with her to the box.
Yeah, it's like you moved to New York, but you moved to New York with your mom and your sister still living with you. Like that, to what extent have you actually developed as an adult?
Come on now.
One quote that stood out to me that I want to talk about a little bit is we get Jesse when him and Lexi have their discussion at the party. We get Jesse saying, we're on a fucking reality show. I'm talking to my friends about my relationship here. And then like 2 lines later, he cuts off the argument with Lexi and says, I don't want to talk about this right now. Like, I do not want to talk about this in front of the camera. So I thought that just like really highlighted kind of the duplicitiveness. Is that the right word?
Yeah, duplicity. Yeah,
duplicity. Thank you. Of Jesse this season, and just like tying together the presentation. I think that maybe the use of split screen is something that emphasizes this duplicity as well.
I love that. Yeah, that's a whole new way of reframing it, and really,
literally,
because the episode is really leaning on their relationship. Yeah, but yeah, absolutely, I love that take.
Awesome. Let's get into our highlights. We'll start with you, Carson. Do you have any highlights that we haven't gone over yet?
I mean, this is a small thing, but every time we see the bed bugs this season in bed, do you notice how we see Paige's hand on her laptop? Like she is hand on the laptop, dead asleep. I think that's a skill. I really think it's a skill because she is dead asleep, but that MacBook Pro is not falling off the bed. Also, just Ciara's costume. I mean, she by far, not just the best summer house costume, best Bravo. Like, so funny, but it's the way she embodies it. And I think she was trying to pick up a little bit of Wes's energy, a little bit of Austin from Summer Craig to create this like ultimate evil white man.
Yeah, I think that she's killed it on the costumes this season too, because she had whatever the other costume party she had, she was like a parrot or something like that, and just like really nailed it there as well.
Yeah,
she has real skills.
Yeah, great costumes.
Ezra, how about you? Do you have any highlights that we haven't discussed yet?
We may have like briefly touched on it, but like the fact that Lindsay was just casually, as she should, pumping out her milk. And the girls being there and the cameraman camera people being kind enough to like frame her, from the neck up, but also getting it, in different, pieces of coverage, like that just being like accepted and normal and not like a huge deal. Like we can laugh about it for like a quick second, but why is this anything to get worked up over? It was kind of like really nice to see on a show like this.
Yeah, just like a flat treatment, normalizing it. I agree.
Normalizing taking shots of it too.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like,
I loved it.
That I feel like is it speaks to a level of intimacy between all of them. Their friendship, the comfort that they have between each other. It really emphasizes how this is more than just like friends for a TV show and like friends as in like coworker friends, but like there's a true like personal connection that they've got the comfort to do that. I really liked that moment, not just as, a kind of a like it's sort of played for laughs a little bit on here, but I think it also speaks to a level of intimacy that they have with each other that I really liked.
Yeah, I think that's like authenticity too, because like we know where society is right now all over the world, and especially in these more developed countries. So for them to be themselves and laugh and then get over it is like, okay, we're just being ourselves. We're not really thinking about how this is going to play somewhere.
I found it funny too recently, like we were talking about, when our friends have a baby. And I was like, yeah, when my friends have babies, I love them to use that breast milk to make me some soap. It like clears up my acne. And he heard that. He was like, that's weird. And then all my girlfriends were like, no, it's not. Like, da 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 da. And I think it's just such a like girlhood to womanhood. It's like, we don't need these men to understand because we have each other and we get it. It's not weird.
Yeah.
Did you guys want a shot of breast milk watching that scene, or were you like, damn, that looks good?
I would take
just
a hit.
me then.
Why
just
not?
me then.
No, I did because I like breast milk every single time I've tried it. It clears up my skin. I swear, it's like it's magic juice.
I would love it in like a cupcake. Like make me like a cookie or something.
You don't know it's there, but it's there.
Exactly. I'm not aware of it.
I don't consume much milk of any kind, so it was not appealing to me. But yeah.
Totally.
I can remember the first time I had milk on a farm where like warm from the cow. I had, as an adult, I never did that when I was a kid. I wasn't raised around cattle or anything. But as an adult, the first time I had like fresh milk on a farm, I was like, holy shit, it tastes this good. Yeah. So I couldn't help but think of that when I was like, I've never had breast milk. I bet a cow only eats grass. Like its diet is so like spare. I bet. Sorry.
There's this like crazy
shut this
doc
down right now.
No, I'll button it with this one last thing. There's this doc on Netflix, I think, all about this actual topic and people using like human breast milk for like cancer, related, symptoms and and cancer too. I don't know the legitimacy of any of this, right? But it was so interesting to see people like spending the time to like experiment with this. It's wild. It's weird, but yeah.
Yeah, alongside the champagne and caviar, just a shot of
Very New York.
Dylan, how about you? Do you have any highlights?
I do want to bring up Paige goading on West at the dinner when Lexi confronts Jesse, and then West is the only person who like kind of speaks up for Jesse, and Paige doesn't speak up for Jesse, but encourages West to do so. And I thought that was interesting. And then how they kind of split along the lines of like who thinks West should speak up here and who thinks West should be quiet. And Ciara is on West's side in that division. And that kind of happens because Paige is like, from across the table, just staring at him, being like, speak up. Do it. I thought that was pretty interesting.
I also feel like Paige doesn't really like Lexi. And that was part of the reason she told West to speak up. Because if you look at her on Summer House, she'll always kind of defend the girl unless she doesn't like the girl. Because the girl she doesn't defend. Gabby. Lindsay in the past, but now she will. But I think that was Paige kind of reiterating, I'm on Jesse's side. And then afterwards, she goes and talks to Jesse, and she's like, we're on your side.
I think it would be like, it would be like beyond the pale for her to directly confront Lexi. Like she like refuses to at least seen to be on the side of the girls. Like she will not directly contradict.
It's part of her brand.
Exactly, right. Yeah. But she wants what Lexi's saying to be disputed. But since it can't come from her, she's like trying to find somebody who she can needle and use as a weapon to like, you do it.
Yeah. She's a leader.
It's a proxy.
Yeah. She's delegating. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think we covered most of what I wanted to talk about in terms of highlights. Let's get our stars. Carson, let's start with you. Who are your stars this episode?
Well, Lindsay, because she, pushed a human out of her. That's a star for me. 3 stars. Also, West, because I love the comment. Like, Wes, I feel like, has not had a great sophomore season. He's been in a little bit of slump. He was very quiet. But the confessional where he said Gabby's never had her relationships, analyzed in this way. I was like, yeah, that's really, really insightful about Gabby, and it's a great defense for yourself. Also, just
too bad he couldn't think to say it at the moment
in person. But I mean, when we talk the Valley, I think that comes up a lot. People saying more in confessionals than they will in person. But yeah, I also big fan of just like Ciara sweeping the trash out. I just thought
that was great.
Like, it was great strategy in the moment because she wanted to help out Lexi and be a girl's girl, but it's also just like funny. And that's like the Ciara like magic.
Yeah, totally. And this I think was a good example of the girls actually looking out for each other here when they go and sweep in, or they sweep out the girls that Jesse has like Pied Pipered into the house at the end of the party. I really appreciated that moment.
Oh, absolutely.
Ezra, how about you? Any highlights that we haven't covered?
I think.
Sorry, we're on stars.
Oh, right.
Sorry.
Right.
Who are your stars from this episode?
Yeah, I think our sleeper agent of Imrul is probably my star because he's just as cool as a cucumber, man. Anything that happens, it just, water off his back, all this drama, just keeping the peace, bringing the food, just chilling and watching the chaos.
He came through with those breakfast sandwiches in the morning.
Exactly.
Yeah, he did.
I just love the fly on the wall,
Do you think that he'll have, do you think Imrul will have another season here?
Probably not.
I don't think so. I really don't. Just because he's not even in the whole reunion. Like, I DM'd him. I was like, hey, you're not in the cast photo. He was like, yeah, they had me leave halfway through. I was like, oh. And I just think he didn't really develop deep friendships in the house. And I think that first season, you really, really need to come in and like Wes and Jesse. I think they did a great job of like making friendships with everyone in the house. And I think that's the problem with Imrul is we don't see him connecting with Paige, Lindsay, or really, I couldn't even tell you who his closest friend is in the house.
Yeah.
I think like Lexi will be back because she had such a big storyline. And I think Summer House, they love putting exes in the house.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Stir the pot.
Yeah.
Dylan, who are your stars?
For I think the third week in a row, I'm going to give my number one star to the Prime Minister of Canada, Lexi Wood. I think she continued to impress me just by showing a lot of strength of character, despite being only 18 metric years old. I think she was standing her ground. She was keeping her attacks on Jesse focused, and she wasn't falling for his bait. She was staying on target and standing up strong. So I like to see that from her. So I'll give her another first star. Lots of candidates for the other stars. I'll sneak one in for Amanda at number 2, because I don't think I've given her a star yet this season. And yeah, like you mentioned, Carson, she's had kind of a sneaky good season, even though she's mostly been around the margins. She's often been coming in with a one-liner. She's seemed a lot more herself, and it's just been really fun to see her there. And like snuggling into the coffin at the end as just kind of like the final bit of that death party was like a lovely little moment. And let's give a third star to Ciara for mostly the reasons we've mentioned. She's had a great season. She's just a great television personality.
If I could add on to that too, actually, I realized I didn't give my other two. I would definitely give mine also to Ciara, primarily for her artistry. Like that costume idea is so out of left field and kind of like reminded me of, just because it's in my mind so much lately, like Tim Robinson a little bit, and just like that just oblique kind of sense of humor. And then Lindsay again, of course, for just literally giving life. So that's pretty, she's got to win at the end.
One thing on the costumes to Summer House, I don't know if you guys seen the TikTok account Reality with Allie. Her whole thing is just analyzing the political views of reality stars. And I was like, Summer House is the only Bravo show where you know where they stand politically. Look at Lindsay's handmade costume or Ciara's finance bro. You're not like, oh, are they MAGA? Like, you don't have that question.
Yeah.
One note on the costumes, I thought it was shocking to me how when Kyle had his like gaunt makeup on, he just looked like David Bowie.
Yes.
I did not expect that to be revealed.
I didn't even realize that. Yeah.
Okay, well, my stars, I think number 1 and number 2 have to go to Jesse and Lexi. You can't talk about this episode without mentioning them. You can't talk about this season without mentioning them. So I would give number 1 to Lexi because she has emerge as someone that I want to root for. I am impressed by her ability to stand her ground and navigate arguments. So she's my number 1 here. I think she has emerged as like a really capable reality TV personality that also has like a weird kind of backstory around her. This dynamic with her family I find really intriguing. I'm interested to see how it evolves because it does not seem like a sustainable like personal relationship. It feels like she is being preyed upon by her family, so I'm interested to see how that evolves. Number 2 would be Jesse then, and number 3 I think I have to give it to Ciara as well, just because we did get the moment of her sweeping things out. She's just been engaging all season. She's had a really great season, and one of the things that I think that she has done well is she's been one of the only people that I think has been operating with any sort of strategy in terms of the gameplay here. We didn't really dive into this, but I think that the way that she has been handling Wes has been pretty like calculated in terms of trying to minimize his ability to leverage her as a piece within the social hierarchy and within the like the competitive structure of reality TV. Yeah. We've seen all season West has been trying to get a story off the ground involving like a redemption arc with Ciara, and she has been very purposeful in not giving it any sort of air and being very aware of how she interacts with him in order to minimize that story. And I don't think it's necessarily that she even wants to like freeze him out and make sure that he doesn't return. I don't think that that's her motive, but I think that she is so aware, or she has a feeling about how she was used last season by him in order to get a leg up and establish himself. She does not want to risk being used again. And he very easily could have used her in order to rebuild his profile and have more social currency within the show and the fans by getting forgiveness from Ciara. And she's been very careful to not give that story any life, and so she has not had the need to like forgive him and give him redemption. And so I really like how she has maneuvered this season, and I think it shows a very smart awareness of how the show plays socially.
Yeah, she's savvy and also just true to herself and her values. It's very clear.
Yeah.
Maybe even slightly similar to Lexi.
Yeah. And Ciara, she comes off like so authentic as well. Like there's never a moment where you're watching her and you're like, oh, is this like just for the camera, or what is real here? And that's something that we see a lot with reality shows. That's the reality personalities. That's just the nature of the game. And I think that she just manages to come across very authentic.
Yeah.
100%.
So we're going to dive into the Valley right away. Before we do that, if you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, give a like. Let us know in the comments who your stars are for this episode of Summer House or this season of Summer House, and share us with your friends. It helps us out a ton. If you're listening on a podcast platform, hit subscribe there. Let your friends know, and head on over to our YouTube channel because we post video content there as well. So let's dive into Summer House. Carson, let's dive into the Valley. Carson, do you want to give us a summary of what happened here?
Yeah, so as the Santa Barbara trip ends on a low note, the girls try to attempt to make up with Nia, and all hell breaks loose when Janet maybe misspeaks.
Yeah, this episode I thought was fantastic. I'm really into the Valley right now. I think that it is very compelling. Did anything stand out in terms of how it was presented, Carson or Ezra?
I think from what I can recall from Carson and I just reviewing it a bit more, I think I was appreciating their kind of intimacy with the girls at the table, like just leaning into their conversation and leaning into and not like cutting away to something else or, distracting us with anything. They just kept us in that moment with them. I thought that was pretty powerful.
It is a long scene, and one thing that I've talked about before on the show is that one thing that I like less about contemporary reality TV versus what it was 10 years ago was that we used to get like really long scenes that would go like from one commercial break to another, and I feel like now it's a more like very short scenes that are more like efficiently constructed from a few key moments. Just to kind of piggyback on what you're saying, Ezra, that is something I liked about that moment too, because they really give it a lot of runtime, which builds that sense of intimacy.
Yeah.
Dylan, did you have anything that stood out to you in terms of how this was presented?
Yeah, I mean, aside from, like Ezra said, the kind of sense of intimacy with that kind of long scene over the table, which I liked. Just a little tiny thing that I thought was cute was when we get life coach Scott giving his metaphors about water and plants and telling us how your attention is water and what you pay attention to, that's what you water. I do like how the editors kind of decide to run with that, because the very next cut is to a crossfade of somebody watering plants onto Kristen and Luke Colorado's new house.
Which is in our neighborhood.
Is it?
Oh, it's in North Hollywood. I was like, I know that house. That's not far from me.
Yeah. So I just like how they like decide to run with what he was saying to kind of set the scene of being like they're building their new life because they're taking the time to care about
Water
it.
their garden.
Water in their little garden, filling their pool up.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think in terms of like symbolism within this episode, there was a choice that was made here that I really liked. So often when we see a cast trip on, whether it's the Valley or Real Housewives of Beverly Hills or any of those shows, when the trip is over, we don't get a lot of that journey back, or especially we don't get a lot of the packing up, but the producers keyed in on everyone packing their bags at the end of this trip, and it very hurriedly, like shoving all their baggage back into their suitcases and trying to cram it into the car. And we see shots of like clothes bursting out of these bags that are being loaded into the car really frantically so that they don't have to like confront what has happened the night before. And I just really love that symbol of like packing up your baggage and like forcing things in order to avoid conflict or avoid having to confront something within yourself. So I really like how that was like underscored with the actual shots of them like packing their bags and the bags being bursting at the seams because their baggage can't be contained. I thought that was like a really nice inclusion there.
Yeah.
There's another sort of theme within this episode that I liked, and that is this idea of kind of reframing things, like either reframing a perspective within an argument. Like we see Janet doing that with the the allegations that Danny has a drinking problem, and she's trying to reframe this from just being, shit talking and a pile-on to be like, oh, we're actually reaching out to you to like help you. And we also see on the other side of this, we see Nia and Danny trying to reframe their personal narratives really carefully. And I thought that these competing dynamics of everyone trying to reframe the narratives in a way that kind of benefits them and makes them look the best was really interesting. I'm wondering if any of you guys kind of like picked up on that, and who do you think is doing the most effective job at taking the situation and forcing it through their own lens? Ezra or Carson, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say Nia, because when I saw the episode, I tried to watch it without reading anything online, seeing how the audience is feeling. And I watched it. I was like, I don't think what Janet said was like I don't like what she said, but, or how she said it, but I see why she said it. And I don't disagree really with her. It's just her, how she said it. But then the way the audience was like, protect Nia at all costs. Nia's our girl. Nia, Nia, Nia. And I think Nia did a really good job of, she heard, and it was when Janet said the word drugs. If Janet would have said substance abuse, this fight wouldn't have happened, I think, in the same way. And I think she took that word drug and said, he doesn't do drugs. Jax does drugs. He does drugs. We're different. We are, and it's that holier than thou, persona. And I think it's working for Nia. I think people feel it's authentic. I think it's somewhat authentic. But I feel like for the base level of a lot of audience members, they're really buying what she's putting down. And I think it's interesting because to me, it feels like there's a lack of authenticity with Nia and Danny. And it comes from her like Miss America. Danny's been in Hollywood for so long. You're not having people as like Michelle, who I don't think has ever seen a Bravo show before. And so I think everything Michelle does isn't really strategic in any way. It's just her doing what she's doing.
Wasn't there a thing too where Janet said, I could be misremembering, where like she thinks that Nia's husband is like perfect or something, like your perfect husband could do no wrong or something like that?
Yeah, her framing it that way to like kind of say you're not perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
totally.
to add to that.
Dylan, how about you? What are your thoughts there?
I absolutely agree with Carson there. I thought that Nia was definitely controlling the narrative, controlling the framing. When Janet spoke, I didn't even like pick up on the word drug, but Nia sure did. And like you said, made that the one part, because that's the one thing which is like not applicable. That's the one thing that she hooked onto to like frame what Janet was saying as being like totally out of line, which to me maybe was a little impolitic. And definitely Janet does like to stir up shit sometimes. I didn't really see that as her trying to stir up shit. I thought it was her, like she was maybe a partially, but I thought it was fairly well framed in terms of trying to be like, okay, we're starting with a specific observation, him going into a room, closing a door and taking shots in secret. And then I'm going to connect that to my personal experience of, I've been with somebody with the substance abuse problems. And the conclusion is that I want you to know that I'm here for you and you can talk about it if you want to. I thought that like was a pretty well chosen series of statements that doesn't seem inflammatory. Like that seems like it's a reasonable kind of way to speak about the situation. But Nia definitely kind of flexes her narrative controlling muscles to like make it about, we're under attack. And, her story about how rough her childhood was, absolutely feel for her. That's obviously going to be something that's going to be part of your life. She doesn't do a good job, I don't think, connecting it to the discussion. Like, I don't feel like that was really like, I didn't quite understand, besides, trying to getting people to sympathize with her, which we should sympathize with that. But like, I didn't understand why that was connected to what they were talking about.
Yeah, a little manipulative potential.
Yeah.
You know what? I think that this was actually, whether it was intentional or not, I think that this was really effective, because I do think that Nia comes across a little inauthentic, just trying to like really frame things as very like positive all the time, and like trying to be like this pristine image of a perfect life. I think that comes across as really inauthentic. But as soon as she added this bit of context, it really like made it really kind of colored her behavior, in that like she is someone who is trying to like put on a positive front and like smile through the pain and like really keep everything together that is actually behind the scenes falling apart. And I think that it has gone from someone who is like living this perfect, unattainable life to being this person that is like really trying to keep things together and smile through like all the craziness. And I think that's something that a lot of people can like relate to. And I think that really resonates with a lot of people within the audience, really trying to keep things together and like put up your best front for your family or like whatever. I think that really benefited her. And I think that really helped her sell her narrative. I think I think you're right, Dylan, about Janet coming from a place that is, maybe somewhat trying to like stir stuff up, but also like really wanting to be like, hey, look, we should be there for our friend. I think that there was a certain level of authenticity there, but it doesn't really land because she is so known as a pot stirrer. She has been like that way since she has been introduced. And it's interesting that she is kind of discovering that because of her reputation, she cannot be taken seriously. It's I would be interested to see her like attempt to overcome this reputation that she has as a pot stirrer, because I think it's probably possible, but it's going to take a lot of work. And I am like hesitating to draw parallels to this season of The Rehearsal by Nathan Fielder, but
oh my god, don't get me started on that show. I fucking love that show and Nathan.
Yeah, the beginning of this season of the rehearsal, it dives into this idea of whether or not the clown can be taken seriously, and I really think that it explores that theme really well. I would be interested to see Janet kind of go through that arc on a docu-soap, because it does seem like she does have, like, she doesn't seem like a truly bad person, but she just loves stirring the pot. So to see how she can go from everyone assuming you are stirring the pot to like everyone, reading you being authentic would be interesting.
Yeah, she needs to go through the Fielder method. Then we can really...
exactly.
Well, and on that, I kind of think of Sheena, which I know they're like best friends, but I feel like the first at least 5 seasons of Vanderpump Rules, everyone laughs at Sheena and makes fun of her. And people still do, but I think there's like more of a love for it now. It's like, oh, that's Sheena. She knows everyone. Sheena has... And I think Janet, if the audience could find more lovable qualities about her, she could have the Sheena effect, And I think one thing Janet does have on her side is her husband. Because of all the men on the Valley, I would say Jason and Luke are probably the most likable right now, I would say. But we'll see coming up.
Yeah, totally. Okay, let's get into quotes. Ezra, did you have a quote that stood out to you?
Let me think. We had it right here. 1 second. When Nia shushes Daniel and says, "You don't need an energy drink right now," when we have kids to wake up in the morning. Like, I thought that was pretty funny.
Such a sliver of like what their actual relationship is versus that. Hi, honey, how are you? Shut up. We have to do this.
We're getting more and more of that too. And honestly, I'm really here for it. I really like that we're seeing more and more of the cracks appearing in Daddy and Nia, and often like through little things that Nia will like breathily whisper to him and be and I'm starting to enjoy it.
It's those insights, right? Those little insights.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you know what, I agree with what Brittany said in the previous episode. Like, this show is full of people going through hell. It's a dark show full of like people with awful lives going through awful times.
Oh yeah,
you guys don't get to hide from it. You're on the show too. Your coworkers. Sorry, Nia and Daddy. You guys got to be dragged out of this too. You've got to open up and show the nasty stuff going on in your relationship, because that's what the show's about. And you're in this game too.
Sorry, dude.
Yeah. Everyone else has something terrible going on in their life, whether it's like Jesse and Michelle's toxic relationship, or Luke and Kristen painting the stone mantle in their rental.
Like, come on.
Some sort of darkness. Did I get both Carson and Ezra? Did I get both of your quotes?
A quote that stuck out to me was Janet's confessional when she said, "Well, at least my husband doesn't make people uncomfortable by drinking in clothes," whatever she said, but at least my husband doesn't make people uncomfortable. I just kind of love that stab from Janet, but also valid, because I think a lot of people don't want to question Danny's relationship with alcohol because we're seeing Jax. And so it's saying if he's an alcoholic, he's like Jax. But I think Janet is questioning, just like, he might not be an alcoholic, but and I think Lala said this really well in the after show. I don't really tend to love what she says, but she said an alcoholic cannot be diagnosed. You can only be self-diagnosed. And I was like, that's very true. Mm-hmm. But there's something about Danny's behavior where it's, I'm trying to find the right word. His relationship with, it's like something to be questioned. He's made multiple people uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And I do another thing with the whole Jasmine thing is I really love when Jasmine, I can't remember what exact word she says, but she talked about how she feels fetishized as a queer person in this group. And I really like the analogy of, what if Danny did that to Janet? How would Jason react? And I think that's an overall thing of the homophobia and the racism. Janet's place in the group and on the show has really, it's felt from the audience, but I think within the group as well, because having the only queer people as friends of the first season, I think set a tone for what the show was really about. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of followed into the second season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Dylan, did you have any quotes that stood out to you?
Yeah, I'm going to follow up on what Carson was saying there because that's something that I was thinking about too. Like there's a point where Jasmine is talking about like how she's kind of, I guess, struggling to get over the way Danny acted. And she says something like, oh, I don't know if it's like trauma or just being a woman that like I feel this way. And I'm just thinking like, you don't have to think about like, what about me makes me feel that way? You could put it on him. Like you can, I know you already confronted him about it, but if you feel like you're not over it, that's fine. And you can say that that's, and you can say that that's his fault and not your problem. That's his problem. Like it feels like this is something that if Jasmine doesn't feel like it's been appropriately addressed and she's still kind of uncomfortable about Danny because of that, she is absolutely within her rights to bring it up again, to continue speaking about it and
water that garden.
Yeah, no, but and it feels like Nia and Danny do kind of want there to be a bit of a stone wall where they can not have issues with them with the way that Daddy's behaved, be like storylines. They don't want that to be like what everybody's talking about. But once again, they shouldn't be invulnerable to that. And if Jasmine feels like she's kind of not over that, then she has every right to feel like that's something that should be continued to be talked about. And that does go hand in hand with Daddy drinking too much. And I thought that was kind of a revealing statement in the sense that the way Jasmine feels like she has to kind of deal with that on her end because there's kind of this wall that's been erected between her and Danny and she can't really deal with it to him and talk to him about it anymore because they feel like, oh, that's been done. We've discussed it. Now we're going to move on and we're not going to do it anymore.
Yeah.
How did you feel about Sheena appearing? Like,
loved it.
What are your thoughts about her showing up in the Valley?
I love it. I know a lot of people are like, we don't need them. I want Sheena. I love Sheena. Sheena knows everyone. She knows everything. I love that Michelle sold her house. Like, I love that. That's all kind of like this intertwinedness. And I feel like Sheena is a staple of this Vanderpump Rules world. And we need her there for the gossip because she knows everything about everyone. And I love her in this like almost supporting role, but I am a big Sheena fan. She just lights up my screen.
Yeah, I love Sheena as well. I think that you're right. She's a staple. And as much as there seems to be like a little bit of a Sheena renaissance within the fan base, I think that she has had a lot of hate poured on her over the life of Vanderpump Rules that from the fans, where she just does not get enough credit for the impact that she makes on the show. So I was very happy to see her. And this scene between Michelle and Sheena, I really liked how they hiked up a mountain while talking about this big challenge that Michelle has recently overcome, both the conflict on the cast trip as well as getting out of her marriage. And I like the physical act of climbing to the top of the mountain in order to have this conversation. I thought that was just a really nice touch there. Interested to see how Michelle gets down the mountain, whether that's going to be tumbling down the side or if she can get down with grace. But I really liked this scene and was just so happy to see Sheena back on our screen.
Totally.
Yeah, I'm not going to be one of the people who complains about like folding in people from the Vanderpump extended universe into it, especially if it's somebody like Sheena. Like, I don't care. I'm there for it. I don't care if it's gimmicky. This is like the one universe that I will get like glup shitto excited about when people are. I'm happy to be like, it's jeweler Kyle Chan. Welcome back, jeweler Kyle Chan.
He's the number one friend of Bravo. I love Kyle Chan so much. And I love that they all get their engagement rings from him. Like
I think the rings are cursed, maybe.
Probably. Because the only Vanderpump cast member that didn't get a Kyle Chan ring was Stassi. She might be the only one still married.
Yeah. Oh, shit.
Oh, there's something there. That's crazy. I also like how he seems to know like everything about Kristen's ring preferences already. And Luke is kind of like, oh, I want a ring. And Kyle's like, so she likes emerald cut.
Knows everything.
Okay, let's get into any other highlights. Carson, Ezra, did either of you guys have any highlights that we haven't got into yet?
I definitely want to bring up the scene of Jesse and Isabella at home when Michelle FaceTimes for the housekeep, because one, as a kid with divorced parents, the be outside in 5 minutes thing, I was like, that is a staple of like, be outside, be ready. But you can see how Isabella has a very similar personality to Jesse, and I think in a lot of ways, and seeing how Michelle kind of navigates that and just kind of gives into it. I think because I was listening to Michelle's podcast and she talked about how the apartment she was living in during filming didn't allow filming. And so she has this great challenge on the show where we're not seeing her and Isabella together like we're seeing Jesse and Isabella together.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's a really great way to kind of paint what Michelle's like as a mother. And we see kind of like this not hard personality because she's 5. She's a child, but maybe she's more similar to Jessie in certain ways, and seeing her respond with some softness, because we're not seeing her be soft at all with Jessie, and we shouldn't.
Yeah.
I thought that the key was a pretty interesting token within this scene as well, just because like on one hand, Michelle is like, she's torn because on one hand, you know, she wants to be able to give this to her daughter. On the other hand, it is going to her ex's place, and you know, the key is grants physical access to sanctuary, Michelle's home, and I really like that. It was a key. It wasn't just like a stuffed animal or something like that. It was an actual like house key, and it really added to the conflict that Michelle must feel when making the decision as to whether or not to give it to Isabella.
Oh yeah, carries new weight.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I think if I'm recalling correctly, Luke. His testimonials, I think, or his one testimonial he was talking about, you know, everything that they've gone through. I thought that was really powerful.
Driving
and,
to
like,
Indiana.
Yeah. Just like that, you know, honesty and like insight into like their journey so far. I thought that was really emotionally powerful.
And you know, he knows how to keep a car running too. So they were never in danger.
Yeah, totally.
Dylan, how about you? Any highlights that we haven't talked about?
We pretty much covered it, though. Again, a quick little shout out to Scott, the marriage coach, who is now just a life coach. Love these shitty life coaches that pop up. I adore all of them, and I love that the last time he was introduced as a marriage coach. But you know, obviously, Jesse has kept him around. You want that guy on your bench. You know, he did such great work with the marriage, so of course you've got to have him on your team.
MVP.
And, yeah.
I love that Jesse, when he like in his confessional, he refers to him as a marriage coach and does like air quotes for it. Like, really adds to his legitimacy. He's not going to be a guest on the Joe Rogan podcast like he so desperately wants sometimes. I'm just assuming, just based on his vibe, he has like
probably
that wannabe Rogan guest vibe. I think we covered most of my highlights. Let's dive into our stars. Carson, do you want to lead us off?
Yeah. So 1 star for me is just the moment of them jumping into the pool, that 70s sitcom like interlude, because the valley is so dark. I just was like, Jasmine, I need to see you running and jumping in the pool right now. I like just needed it. Another star for me is Luke. I was so skeptical of Luke last season. I think I have maybe this protectiveness over Kristen. We've watched her for so long on TV. We've seen her in awful relationships. I just read her memoir last month. Luke is a godsend. Thank God for Luke. I love Luke. And I'm like, I'm kind of into Luke now. He's like more attractive. And when he brings her watermelon in bed, I told Ezra, I was like, every time I'm hungover, please bring me watermelon in bed, cut up the way it was. I think we covered kind of my other stars. How
about you, Ezra?
I think for me, maybe this might be, I don't know, debatable, but like Jasmine, you know, when apologizing
Oh, yeah, to Nia.
Yeah. Like, it's just, I'm looking for these moments of sincerity, and like that was nice, but then also being able to speak her truth and speak to her discomfort the best that she can while trying to be as conscientious as possible. I thought that was
Because she can't really say what she wants to say. You know?
Yeah. You don't want to get booted off the show for something.
I love the moment though where they agree not to talk bad behind each other's back, and then as soon as Nia leaves, they start talking. I was like, we are on a show,
right? Yeah. No restraint whatsoever.
They broke the pinky promise
exactly.
Immediately.
And also, I mean, despite it being, honestly, I don't know if it's manipulative or not, but Nia, sharing that really sensitive piece of her personal history, knowing that it's going to be on TV for forever, that was pretty powerful to me as well. And then Luke, of course, I was on the fence about him as well, and just seeing his kind of like growth and like seeing who he really is a little bit more was really eye-opening and heartwarming, honestly.
Yeah, totally. Dylan, how about you? Who are your stars?
I'm going to give my first star to Janet. I like what she does here, mostly because I'm also just excited to see like how she navigates this going forward in the rest of the season. But, she was the one person at that dinner who came with like a kind of a strong, direct statements. Britt was kind of sitting there not sure what to say. Like Brittany just couldn't seem to really kind of find the words that she wanted. And like Janet came out and like made some clear statements, which were not well received, but she had something to say. She connected the dots. She did some work there, and it's going to be interesting to see where that goes from here. And related to that, I'll give second star to Nia, because she did have to put a little work in terms of like controlling the narrative. I do like seeing more of her like impatience with Danny, just kind of bubbling through the surface more and more. There's a moment at the end where she's like, I think you're doing the nervous laugh and I don't like it. Those little moments, we're getting more and more of them, and they're really good to me. Those little peeks through the cracks of their facade. Love that. Third star, technically to give it to Sheena just for being there, but I'll give it to Jasmine because, as we discussed, she did a good job. She was pretty political. She was like not trying to be combative. She gave like a heartfelt apology, but is still finding moments to kind of to say how she feels too. And I think she needs to maybe do that a little bit more. And she's just a presence that's like easy to root for in like a bit of a difficult situation.
Yeah, totally. I think my stars are going to go number one to Nia. I think that we got to see another side of Nia. I think she has been really effective in fleshing out her character and giving me something interesting when previously I didn't really find her that authentic. So I am into her transformation and seeing how she evolves from this point. I also want to give a star to Janet because I think that she is also at a little bit of she's at a point of transformation. I think she could go one of two ways. Either she has a side that is a little bit more authentic, or she just goes full tilt into the like villain podster archetype, which either way I am interested. I think I really like Janet. She's one of the like personalities on this that I am most interested in watching. Not to say that I like her and that she's seems like a great person, so don't get at me in the comments about that. But or maybe do. That helps with our engagement.
Yeah, go at him.
I think that Janet is a pure angel that can do no wrong. And number three, I think that Jasmine is really emerging as someone that is a real core piece to the dynamic here. Like you said, she's really easy to root for. She is not afraid to speak her mind, but she also like picks her moments and plays the game very politically. So I am really enjoying seeing her on here. I think that she's a great piece of this cast. So, love it. I think that about does it for this week in terms of the Valley and Summer House. Carson, Ezra, thank you guys so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Do you guys want to let everyone know about your show?
Yeah, so we're the Real Housewives of North Hollywood. We do a weekly podcast. Most of the time it's a recap, but we also do a Bravo book club once a month with my grandmother, who's 83 years old and has never seen a reality show in her life.
Hell yeah.
Our book club will come out not this week, but next week. And we're doing Brandi Glanville's Tweeting and Drinking. And might I say, wow, it's pretty good.
Just sounds amazing. Can't wait for that.
Awesome. Do you want to let them know where they can find you on socials?
Yeah, so you can find us at The Real Houseguest of NoHo on Instagram and TikTok. And then we're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple with our full government name, The Real Houseguest of North Hollywood.
Definitely go and check that out. It is one of my favorite Bravo podcasts. The vibe is perfect. It is chill and welcoming and insightful. I can't recommend it enough. It is fantastic. Ezra, did you have anything else that you were wanting to plug while we got you here?
I think right now just The Real Houseguest of North Hollywood.
And you can find him on Vimeo. He's a great filmmaker, not Bravo-like at all, very dark, very twisted, and he'll have a new film coming out in about a year.
Or maybe even a little bit longer
more.
than that.
But there's a lot of good stuff in the past that's out there, and you can find new ways to support his upcoming film as well.
If you want to see some weird little shorts, feel free to look me up on YouTube. Just first name, last name, Ezra Balcha, and then 1800. Yes.
Awesome. We will link that in our show description. So be sure to head to our YouTube and check the description. Dylan, do you want to let people know where they can find you?
If you want to see some of my writing about contemporary film, I post very sporadically on Substack. It's a free Substack. It's just my name, Dylan Ferguson, Dylan. I've got something new up there about Black Bag and the career of Steven Soderbergh that I think is kind of fun. So feel free to go over there if you want to see what I think about movies.
Great.
Awesome. I am Craig Midwinter. You can just find me on our socials at Bravo Outsider on Instagram and TikTok, but don't expect a lot of updates. I have uninstalled those from my phone. I am doing a digital detox. So, but I will be posting comment. Go there. Please go there. But you can find us on YouTube and Spotify. Hit the subscribe button, leave us a comment and a like. All of that helps us out a ton. Share it with your friends. Let them know that if they want to listen to a Bravo podcast that dives deep into the presentation and themes, head on over to Bravo Outsider. Until next week, keep on wiping.